Hello.
Hi,
Caleb Lords
John Brownstone.
of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We're back to answer another question. This one is one we have gotten a lot over the years. So if you resonate with this, just know you're not alone. I'm just saying, somebody is very concerned that they're the only monogamous person in their kink community. We're here to assure you that is not the case at all. Okay, let's get directly into this question. I recently got involved with a local kink community, although I've been interested in the lifestyle for a long time. Almost everyone in the local community is poly. I try not to judge, but it makes me feel like a freak among the freaks as a monogamous person. I'm meeting hardly anyone who's single in the community either. I'm happy to make new friends, but I'm recently single, ready to find a new relationship, and frustrated with vanilla dating sites. Poly just isn't for me, and as much as I try not to judge, I have to wonder if to some extent being poly is the quote in thing in the kink community. Is it like this in all of kink or just in some communities? Is it a recent trend? Do you think it will continue to be this way? I know I wouldn't be happy in a poly relationship as I'm just not wired for it, and I've been through a lot of abuse and have never had anyone, including family, prioritize me. I don't want to have to compromise on what I want because I'm tired of being lonely, but sometimes I feel like I might end up needing to because I'm not finding other options. I don't like it or express it openly, but I'm starting to feel resentful and sometimes wondering if the only friends I'm making in the community aren't really my friends, but just see me as a potential sex partner. Where are the single monogamous kinksters, and how can I work through these feelings without being disrespectful towards poly people? There's a lot to unpack in this.
There is.
There's a lot. Let's start with the base question.
Yeah.
Of, am I the only monogamous person in kink anymore? Am I the only monogamous person in my kink community? The simple answer to that is no, you are not. There's no way in hell you're the only one. But let's talk about that part first, because there's some stuff to unpack here. As a poly person, a non-monogamous person, I should say, functioning within the kink world, what are your thoughts? What's your...
You know, it seem that way at times, that poly has become prevalent in kink. And I think it's a lot to do with it because people talk about it so much.
More than they ever did before.
You know, and let's face it, you know, people don't talk about monogamy.
You don't have to when it's the norm. It's like it's
right
just
when it's considered the norm, it's understood. So you know, yes, you seem to be bombarded with poly this, poly that, this group, that group. You know, it does seem to come across that way, but it is not the definitive.
No.
Okay, you do not have to be poly to be kinky. You don't have to be kinky to be poly. There are a lot of people who practice poly who never dip their toes into kink.
Right, absolutely. Oh, they're definitely vanilla non-monogamous people.
So, you know, while it may seem that it is prevalent and that is the only thing, it's not. It's really, really not.
And it tends to seem prevalent when you are or feel like you are on the outside of the group, when you are not used to hearing about it on a consistent basis, and then that makes you aware of it when it happens because you're like, wait, this is not my normal, and I'm, quote, hearing about it all the time. You really are not. It's just a higher percentage than you've ever experienced before. One reality is that non-monogamous people have always existed. It's like every other type of human out there. We've always existed. Two, the thing about kink is that once you open yourself up to BDSM, power exchange, non-kink, non-vanilla ways of expressing and experiencing, you know, relationships, those people who are drawn to non-monogamy, now it's almost like they have a little bit of permission to explore that. So you will get, you know, somebody who's willing to explore, air quote this, taboo, is also willing, maybe, if they feel like they're wired that way, to explore open relationships, non-monogamy, polyamory, whatever. So that's part of it. The other part of it is people cluster together, like clusters to like, not an insignificant amount of time, right? So it's very possible that the community you happened to go to first, your first month, your first event, however you're experiencing the kink community, happen to be a bunch of non-monogamous people who gathered together. Or, you know, it wasn't always that way, but enough non-monogamous people felt comfortable there, so they started telling their friends, hey, or they started feeling comfortable enough to explore and express. And so now you've got a little cluster of non-monogamous people who, you know, air quote this, and I'm eye rolling a little bit because I don't love the language of it, but they feel like they're everywhere. They're really not. It goes back to what you said. When you're monogamous, you don't have to talk about being monogamous under typical circumstances, because it is considered the norm. So is it that everybody in the community you're experiencing is non-monogamous, or it's the people you're talking to? Who aren't you talking to? Who's over there just living their life, and they don't need to talk about the state of their relationship because there's nothing really for them to talk about. But if you feel like, and your experience has been, that you are in a group of majority non-monogamous people and you do not feel like you are able to meet another monogamous person in this group, then it is time to expand your group. If you're in a major metro area, which quite frankly, if you're in a group of, air quote this, majority non-monogamous people, you can't tell me you're not near a major metro area. So there are probably other events and other groups you can go explore and see if the vibe is the right match for you, to see if you can find maybe potential partners. There are absolutely communities where they'll do singles nights, and they'll do little sort of like events that are more for you to it's not like a dating service, but sort of for you to, everybody knows they're there to maybe meet somebody that they might have an attraction to and get to do something with, or explore something with, or date, or get kinky with, whatever, right? So if this is not the right fit for you and you do not feel like these are your people, then it's time to go find more people. If, however, you can, next time you go to one of those events, you can step back a little bit and see, you know, as, there's a word, sort of objectively as any one person can, and step back and look at the actual crowd. Are you going to talk to the same 10 people every time, and there's another 20 people you've never introduced yourself to? Then it's not the group, it's the people you're gravitating towards. So maybe go introduce yourself to other people. But let's get into some of the other parts of this.
Now, one other quick thing I want to add to that. You know, if you live in an area and you cannot find a group outside of these poly groups, maybe look at starting something. You know, start your own group that fits what you are looking for better.
I would not advertise it as monogamous people only, like that's, but you know, your vibe attracts your tribe. I mean, that's cliche and kind of silly, but it really does. If you want to bring more or different or other people into your kink community, start your own munch, start a group, have a meetup, something. It will be small at first, most likely, but if you know, maintain a good kind of community vibe, it can grow over time.
I mean, it could be a possibility that, you know, the this poly group within this community, they have put together this, you know, these functions for themselves. And there could very well be a number of monogamous people in the community who, knowing they're not poly, do not attend this particular event.
That is very possible.
You know,
that is typically, though, you will see common language to kind of like, there's a way to let people know that this is, you know, mostly non-monogamous folks. But yeah, I think you have a lot of options. Expand your horizons within the group. Look for other events and groups and meetups and munches and whatever else. Start your own thing if you don't think it exists. Those are all your options. But the basic answer to your basic question, you are not the only monogamous person in kink. Every time we get this question, it is, I think, out of almost 10 years of doing this, I think we've received one question where the person was non-monogamous and they're like, how do I find the other non-monogamous people? And the rest of the time, it's a monogamous person going, I'm the only one. You are never the only one. Monogamy is still the cultural norm, at least here where we live. And we are still, I say we're not monogamous. Monogamous people are still the majority. It might be that in kink you get a slightly different percentage because kinky people tend to be more open to all kinds of exploration, but monogamy is still the majority nearly everywhere. So let's get into some of these other thoughts you've expressed. Okay. So when you have to tell me twice in one paragraph that you're trying not to judge, you might not realize it. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You're coming across as judgmental. I do like I actually like the expression, am I the freak among freaks? We're all freaks here. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't matter what your flavor of freak is. We're all freaks here. So I can almost hear other non-monogamous people grinding their teeth at the idea that non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships is a trend.
Yeah.
That's like saying every marginalized identity, like gender and sexuality, is a trend. Why? Because we are just seeing it more, because we have access. We have access to being able to see people that we would never have seen pre-internet. And more people are starting to feel more comfortable expressing their identities and their ways of being and living where we can see it. And within the kink community and kink safe spaces where we think, hey, this is a place where I'm allowed to kind of just be who I am, then many people, not all, but many people feel even more safe. Hearing about something more than you ever did at some point in your life, pre-kink, I would imagine, does not mean it's new or trendy. It just means you're gaining more exposure to it and more people are starting to feel more comfortable expressing themselves. The example that gets used online all the time, usually when we're having to fight the argument that being trans is trendy. It's not. Trans people have also always existed. But the argument that gets used, or the example that gets used, is that once we hit that point in time where schools stop trying to force left-handed people to be right-handed, then there was a spike of left-handed people. Left-handed people weren't just all born in one year that year. It was they no longer had to pretend to be something they weren't. And so the numbers skyrocketed for a few years of people going, hey, yeah, I'm left-handed. And then it stabilized and it normalized, and now it's like typical, like whatever part of the percentage of humanity is left-handed is stabilized. This is not any different. I do think more people are now feeling more, I don't know if say if comfortable is the word, but feeling like they have the option to explore non-monogamy than ever before. But the desire for it is not a new thing. It's just hey, wait, I have a way to go figure out, am I this? How does this work? And quite frankly, non-monogamous people are not in the same way that like other marginalized identities are, but they are absolutely still looked down upon. Part of the wording of your question, even if that's not what you intended, is a good example of it, right? Like, what's wrong with all these poly people? And there's definitely the trope and the stereotype online of, well, if you're non-monogamous, you're just a cheater. You're just trying to like justify your cheating. So there's stereotypes and there's, there's pushback from people who don't want the standard and the norm and the typical to change, monogamous people mostly. So just because you're seeing it more doesn't mean it just started existing once you paid attention to it.
Right.
It's been around.
It has been there, and now, just like everything else, more people are talking about it, so it seems more visible.
Yes.
Now going into the other, do you think it will continue to be this way? Here's my take on it. It will continue to be that way until it isn't.
Yeah, it's that same spike of everybody's left-handed for some reason until it stabilizes. It is just another cycle, maybe. You go back into the BDSM world. There was a time when old guard was prevalent. Sure.
Okay. The Gorian movement brought about slavery.
Master slave owner.
Master slave owner.
Kink. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then high protocol, which was another one that was prevalent for a while, and then it kind of, And it's still there. People still do high protocol, but it has become from.
It's right along the lines. The most contemporary example I think we can give is 50 Shades has made everybody kinky. No, the fuck it didn't. No, the fuck it. I watched an internet comment conversation on the Kinkery's Instagram, quite frankly. I thought I posted something funny and folks started getting philosophical. And somebody had to educate another person that all these problems that you were outlining about what's wrong in kink, they were blaming 50 Shades. They're like, no, this existed before 50 Shades. Like, kink existed before 50 Shades.
Right.
So anything that gains some perceived popularity, right, where more people explore it, more people talk about it, more is a subjective term, more than what? I don't know. I can't measure that. If you are not part of that group that identifies with whatever that thing is, it will feel like it is, quote, everywhere. And especially if you don't identify with it and don't want to explore it for yourself, you're like, oh my God, I can't get away from it. It's mostly because you're probably hyper aware or you have, well, we said to the beginning, you have come across a part of the kink community where a bunch of non-monogamous people either found one another or were brought together purposefully, and they just feel comfortable with one another. Right. And so you just found them without realizing that's what the group was. They are not representative of all of kink. There's no single kink group you can walk into that is representative of all of kink. It's way too individualized.
It's too nuanced and diversified.
Right. So, yeah, it's gonna seem like everybody's talking about it until it becomes normal to you. And being normal to you does not mean that you're required to go do it. It just means it's not novel anymore. It's not this strange thing to you that you have to wrap your mind around. It's just a thing that's kind of background noise because it doesn't apply to you. You don't want it, but you know it exists. And for many people, especially new to communities, you don't have to be new to kink, but new to a community where that is open and people do feel comfortable talking about that and being themselves in that way. Yeah, you're going to feel like, wait, is this the whole thing? Is this everything? Because it's not normalized for you yet. Once it is, you probably won't even notice it that much. That doesn't mean you have to stay in a group where you don't feel like you're meeting the people that are right for you, that especially when you're specifically looking for somebody who might be a potential partner. You're not required to stay in a group, if it's not a good fit for you. But to look at a group of people that because you don't, their life is not the one you would want and you feel like you're outnumbered in the group does not make it trendy. It just means you've never been in the minority for something before and you're getting to go through that experience on some scale. I'm not saying I don't know anything about you. I'm not saying you're not a minority, but you've been monogamous and now you're the minority or perceived minority from monogamous to non-monogamous. And there's a shift you have to go through to learn to not freak out about it. I'm not saying you're freaking out, but there's a lot here. Okay, anything else about that? Because there is definitely one part we have to touch on because I can almost hear our non-monogamous folks screeching in the background, as you should. Okay. Where was it? Here we go. I'm starting to feel resentful and sometimes wondering if the only friends I'm making in the community aren't really my friends, but just see me as a potential sex partner. You've got to unpack that because, and I am a straight-ish. I haven't explored, but I'm mostly straight. I'm definitely cis. I've never had to think about my identity that much. So I don't want to speak for people, but I'm going to relay things as I have heard them explained to the world. That's like thinking that because you are friends with, let's say I'm a woman and I'm friends with lesbians, maybe they're not really my friends. Maybe they want to hit on me. If that should feel a little gross, okay? It's not that much different. What you're describing here is not that much different. It is assuming that these people are not really your friends. They see you as like a mark that they're going to come at and they're being dishonest about it. People who have a better way of explaining this and a better lived experience can probably explain this better than I can. But that's distasteful. Yeah. Disrespectful and it's distasteful.
And my first thought on seeing that was, And don't get me wrong, being poly can involve sex.
Yeah.
But the thing with poly over, say, swinging or maybe having an open relationship is that in poly, it's as much and more about the feels, about creating a connection with somebody, actually building a relationship than, just jumping into bed.
Right. Like if you've got the major umbrella term of non-monogamy and then you break that out between open relationships, swinging, polyamory, like you've got all kinds of different experiences going on there. And what I don't know is, are you using poly as the catch-all for non-monogamy, or do you mean specifically polyamorous? But I think that I'm not saying you're a bad human being for having these thoughts. I am saying you are absolutely showing signs of somebody who has never come across this, anything outside of your perceived norm, and it is making you uncomfortable. And I am glad that you are not walking around asking your friends who are non-monogamous, are you my friend because you want to get in my pants, or are you my friend? Like, I'm glad you do not appear to be doing that. Right. Please don't do that. I do think that what you are feeling and how you are perceiving this is a you thing. You have not explained anything that makes me think that you're walking into kink events and all the non-monogamous people are just walking around like trying to like bump uglies with you because you walked in the room and they assumed you were non-monogamous. The vast majority of non-monogamous people, certainly the responsible, ethical non-monogamous people, are aware that, quite frankly, most people are monogamous. They're going to be more aware of it than you are because they have to navigate the world knowing that they want a different relationship style, and they're mostly going to meet monogamous people. So I feel like you're projecting a little bit and you're worried about a thing that maybe hasn't happened. And also I would say you're frustrated because you want to meet a partner and you're meeting people who are not right for you. That is a you problem, not a them problem, right? They're not doing anything wrong by just existing and offering you friendship. You are having strong feelings about wanting to find a partner, and only, in your mind, only coming across people who will not be a good fit for you. It's actually a really good skill to learn, to realize who is not a good fit for you. That is how you mostly, often, not always, avoid relationships that are not gonna end well, right?
Yeah.
You're actually learning a very good skill here. But to worry and to start feeling resentful that they're only friends with you because you might be a potential partner,
if that really is the case, that's a no on them, because just like with any kinkster, of any diversity, no matter where you are in the kink scene, it's a matter of respecting boundaries. And if you attend this group and they are aware that you are monogamous, and not poly, they should be respecting those boundaries.
Right. If you're in a group that's not respecting your boundaries, you're not in the right group for you at all. You need to withdraw yourself and go find another community space. I mean, that's just a given. But are they disrespecting your boundaries, or are you worried that maybe they could, because, again, the feelings of resentment are building because you want something that you are not finding in this group? The thing is, and I'll say this, even if you live in like a very small area, you have more opportunities for community than you realize. They might not always be in person. Sometimes they're going to have to be online, or you're going to have to travel for it. I absolutely know people who live in such a space where in order to have in-person community, it's probably a couple-hour drive or more. That definitely exists. But if you have the means and the opportunity and the willingness, then that's what you do to go find your community. And or you get online, because online you will absolutely find even more diversity of spaces, of types of communities, of types of people, because on the internet it's a little bit easier to kind of categorize, hey, this is what our group is and that's what their group is, and you can search for that. So if you haven't already started exploring beyond what you found initially and where you started going, that's the next step. If the folks that you're around are not if the community is not giving you what you need and you're not finding what you need here, then go find another group, or like you said, create it for yourself. But please, please, please do not put your issues on these folks who, by the little bit you've told us here, seem to not, like, nobody's like coming up to you and like pressing themselves up against you going, hey, be my third partner. I mean, are they? If that's the case, that's different.
If that is the case, then that's a whole
happening.
different situation.
I don't think that's happening.
And you need to definitely step back.
But I don't think that's what's happening here. I think you're projecting a little bit. I think you are, frustrated. I think that you are maybe a little overwhelmed by it because it's not normal to you. Lola agrees. The way I see it, JB, please jump in, is if you are unhappy in this group, step back from this group, okay? Because the more unhappy you are, the more that's going to leak out onto them. And if they haven't actually done anything to you, that's not fair to them.
Right.
The other thing I would say is maybe spend some time learning from online sources or books or whatever, about non-monogamy, just to kind of get your mind wrapped around it, not to convince yourself whether you're into it or not, but just maybe so you have a better understanding. That's optional, but I highly recommend. And then go seek out community that's a better fit. If this group isn't it, it's okay to go seek out people we are more comfortable with. I personally believe that there should be some introspection on your part about why you're uncomfortable, and are there some things maybe you can unlearn. I think that is, especially when your identity is closer to whatever the air quote norm is, like you're monogamous and you are now deeply uncomfortable with non-monogamous people. I think that's something that you should explore internally. But nobody is required to be around people that they don't feel comfortable being around, or in a group they're not comfortable with, or in a place they're not happy. Like, go find your people if these people are not it. And especially if you have or are borderline on the verge of saying or doing something that might be offensive or inappropriate because you're frustrated, right? Like, that shouldn't be their problem. That's a you thing, right? So, basic question, you're not the only monogamous person. You never were, you never are. Non-monogamy is not a trend. It's just less quiet than it used to be. And we have resources to be able to find out what other people do and think and believe than we did 20 years ago, right? I think we all have the right to be around people that we're most comfortable with, and if they're not it, go find those people, create the group yourself if you need to. The ultimate question is how do I work through these feelings without being disrespectful towards poly people? I think that you do not place these problems on poly people to help you fix. I don't think that you walk into the next event and say something. I think you work on that on your own time. If you happen to have non-monogamous friends who are willing to educate you on their experiences, that's great. But it's a go figure out why you're feeling this way, what you can do for yourself to find the right people, find a better fit community-wise, whatever, and just don't put your hard feelings on these folks who, by all accounts, are just trying to freaking exist and have happened to have found their community spot where they can be openly themselves. That is a beautiful fucking thing when somebody can be openly themselves in a way that does not harm anybody else, right? They're just existing. And I would feel bad for them. Do they realize that they're existing and maybe they think you're their friend and they don't know, or, maybe they do, I don't know, that you're over there worried that they're friends with you just because you think they see you as a potential future partner. Like, that's not fair to them either. So yeah, I would seek out community that's a better fit. I would do some internal work on your feelings of discomfort, maybe learn a bit more about non-monogamy. Anything else that
I think we've,
although we are one version of non-monogamous, we do not speak for all non-monogamous people. I would highly encourage anybody who has either experienced this and worked your way through it, or has been on the receiving end of this, or has watched maybe your monogamous friends kind of go through it, if you have some experiences to share, resources to share,
insight,
right? Feel free to share in the ways that you can. Podcast listeners, it's a little bit hard because you're listening through a podcast, but you can always reach out on social. The show notes page on our website has a comment section. YouTube folks, the comment section is open. We welcome objective, constructive feedback. We do not have all the answers. We are non-monogamous, but that's not our area of expertise either. We don't spend a lot of time talking about it. We navigate it imperfectly in our own way, and that's about it. So there will be other people and other resources that are better fit for this conversation.
For us, it's been a live and learn and learn as we go kind of thing.
Yep, and we're still working through stuff about it. So we're not ever, I think, going to go, we can talk about this. We can only share our own experiences. But so, feel free to share in the places where things can be shared. And we hope this person can find their community and adjust maybe some of their thought processes.
There you go.
Okay. There was nothing short about that one. There was a lot to say there. If you enjoyed this, we love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want to come back for more, please consider subscribing.
And once you do that, go ahead and click the notification bell to get updates and new content.
Just do what Daddy says. And yes, there is now a t-shirt on our Etsy shop that says just do what Daddy says. So link below if you're interested in that. But if you really like what we do, want to help us keep doing it, want access to our online community and our member-only Discord, you can join us on Patreon, patreon.com/KaylaLords, or the link is below. Bye.